situation, I guess there won't be much physical participation, but hopefully we can pray for Lakshmi Mataji. She's been a very long time, she's a long time devotee. Towards the end of her life, she was losing a lot of her logical thinking process, but that comes with age. So Her Grace Lakshmi Devi Dasi Mataji ki Jai. Okay, so this morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, Text 11. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nasta Prayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Okay. Shatri mamasa bhagavan haya shira satsato. Masa bhagavan haya shira sato. Sakshat yagna purushas tapaniya varna. Na purushas tapaniya varna. Chando mayo makhamayo kila devatatma. Atma vacho babhuvur usati svasato shayanastaha. Chob usati svasanasta. Shatre mamasha bhagavan haya shira sato. Rasato sakshat sayagna purushastapaniya varna. Chando mayo makhamoyo kila devatatma. Vacho bhabhuvur usati svasato shanastaha. Shatre mamasa bhagavan haya shirasato. Sakshat syayagna purushastapaniya varna. Chando mayo makhamayo kila devatatma. Vacho bhabhuvurushati svasato syanastaha. Shatre mamasta bhagavan haya shira sato. Sakshat syayagna purushastapaniya varna. Chando mayo makhamayo kila devatatma. Vacho bhabhuvarushati svasato shyanasta. Shatre mamasa bhagavan haya shira sato. Sakshat Yajna Purushastapaniya Varna Chandomayo Makamayo Kila Devatatma Vacho Bhavu Varushati Svashato Shanastaha. Shatre. In the sacrificial ceremony, Mama, of mine, Asha, appeared, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Haya Shirasha, with his horse-like head, Atha, thus, Sakshat, directly, Sa, He, Yagna Purusha, the person who is pleased by performances of sacrifice. Tapaniya, golden, Varna, hue, Chandamaya, personified Vedic hymns. Makamaya, personified sacrifices. Akhila, all that be. Devatatma, the soul of the demigods. Vacha, sounds. Bhabuva, become audible. Ushati, very pleasing to hear. Swashataha, while breathing. Asya, his. Nasta, through the nostrils. So we've got the translation here and the purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So translation. The Lord appeared as the Hayagriva incarnation in a sacrifice performed by me, Brahma. He is the personified sacrifices, and the hue of his body is golden. He is the personified Vedas as well, and the super soul of all demigods. When he breathed, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns came out of his nostrils. So we can repeat, the Lord appeared as the Hayagriva incarnation in a sacrifice performed by me, Brahma. He is the personified sacrifices, and the hue of his body is golden. He is the personified Vedas as well, and the super soul of all demigods. When he breathed, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns came out of his nostrils. Okay, so I'll read the purport. It's a very short purport. The Vedic hymns are generally meant for the sacrifices performed by fruitive workers who also want to satisfy the demigods to achieve their fruitive results. But the Lord, who is the personified sacrifices and personified Vedic hymns, but the Lord is the personified sacrifices and the personified Vedic hymns. Therefore, one who is directly a devotee of the Lord is a person who automatically both served the purposes of the sacrifices and pleased the demigods. The devotees of the Lord may not perform any sacrifice or may not please the demigods as per Vedic injunctions, and still the devotees are on a higher level than the fruitive workers or the worshippers of different demigods. So, Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vande Ham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीन बंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधु एव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Okay, so it's a very short verse. And what it is saying is Lord Krishna, he appeared as Vishnu in the beginning of this creation. As in his Vishnu avatar, he also took a avatar or incarnation of Hayagriva, which is the horse-like incarnation. So his head looks like a horse, and he is in his color is golden. And there's a reference in Srimad Bhagavatam on Canto 7, Chapter 9, Text 37. I'll just read it out quickly. Tasmai bhavan hayashirastanuvam hi barba bhibrad veda dhruvavati balau madhukaita bhagyau hatvanayachrutis ganamscha rajastamascha Sadvam tvava priyatamam tanum amananti, which really describes why. It says, my dear Lord, when you appeared as Hayagriva with the head of a horse, you killed two demons. There were two demons. One was Madhu and the other one was Kaitab. What they'd done actually is they'd attacked Lord Brahma. And when they attacked Lord Brahma, they took away the Vedas. They stole the Vedas. The Vedas are, and all the Vedic scriptures, what we are reading and learning today. So then Lord Brahma needed help to rescue those Vedas from the two demons, Madhu and Kaitaba. Then Lord Vishnu took an incarnation of a horse, and he went and he killed Madhu and Kaitaba. And so he killed Madhu and Kaitaba, who were full of the modes of passion and ignorance. Then he delivered the Vedic knowledge back to Brahma, Lord Brahma. And for these reasons, all the great saints accept his forms as transcendental and untinged qualities. So Lord Krishna actually, in the form of Hayagriva, he is a personified form of knowledge and wisdom. So there's a lot of there's a line of devotees who actually worship in him in the form of Hayagriva, if they want enlightenment or they want wisdom or they want knowledge, they do pray. Let me see if there's anything there else that I can mention that Srila Prabhupada. Oh yes, and in this regard, he actually this was a very interesting purport written by Srila Prabhupada, because he kind of like mentioned or tried to dovetail it into our situation. So if you can imagine Lord Brahma up there, and he's distressed about his Vedas being stolen. And we are devotees down here. We are trying to distribute that knowledge. So Lord Brahma's concern was that his main book distribution was being stolen, basically. And Lord Hayagriva went and rescued his book distribution. So Srila Prabhupada really very nicely explained in this purport that we are devotees and we are distributing books, and we can get attacked. One day I was in the bus, and I had my tilak on, and there were some devotees there. Not devotees, they're non-devotees there who saw my tilak. And they decided that it was not a nice thing to do in public. And they decided to attack me with words. And the girl who was there was saying, I think your makeup has gone, too much, and I think your makeup is not right, and all those things. So, you come across these things. So you just, I just say, oh, that's not my makeup. But, they're in so much ignorance that they think these things. And they try to take shots at you, shots of arrows. So Prabhupada said that we devotees, when we are doing book distribution and distributing knowledge, like Lord Brahma is so anxious to distribute the knowledge of the Vedas. So he relied on Lord Krishna to rescue. And Lord Krishna, as Vishnu did. So, I'm going to read Prabhupada's words to say exactly what he said to reassure those book distributors who get attacked by certain demons. Let me see. The devotees of the Lord are always ready to spread knowledge by which one may understand the Lord through Krishna consciousness. But the demons, being unable to understand the Supreme Lord, are full of ignorance and passion. Thus the Lord, whose form is transcendental, is always ready to kill the demons. By culturing the mode of goodness, one can understand the position of transcendental Lord and how the Lord is always prepared to remove all obstacles on the path of understanding Him. So here he says, such devotees engaged in spreading Krishna consciousness may sometimes be attacked by demons, but they must rest assured that demonic attacks will not be able to harm them. So this is Srila Prabhupada's words. But they must rest assured that demonic attacks will not be able to harm them, for the Lord is always prepared to give them protection. So Srila Prabhupada is quite big on our book distribution and even prasad distribution. Right now we are having corona, and the devotee who's doing the food for distribution says, I'm a little bit scared that the people who come for the prasadam might give me corona. But still I will go, he said, but still I'll go because I want to do this service for Radha Gopinath. So, we have to always take precautions, obviously. Wear your mask, wear your gloves, maintain the distance. But, we have to be assured that Krishna will try to do his best. Not do his best, he will do the very best to protect you and your knowledge. And I found this particular verse, it is, if you want to read it, it is Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto 7, Chapter 9, Text 37. Just how Srila Prabhupada encourages those who are distributing books and come across. Because our book distributors have been jailed. They've been put in jail. They've been attacked. They've been killed. There was a nice story about this book distributor in France, I believe. He decided to give this book to a girl in the train, and he was... this young girl decided to give the book to this man, and he bashed her up very viciously. He in fact injured her head. I think she had some head injuries. She was a young girl, and she was trying to distribute a book to this man, obviously bigger and stronger than herself. And for that he bashed her up. And years later, this same man, he put this story out for everyone to read. His wife passed on, so left her body, and he lost his money, his business, and maybe his children. He basically had nothing. He was empty-handed. He was losing his house. He was in such a pitiable condition. He was crying and depressed and ready to commit suicide. And what had happened, that book that the girl gave him, he came home and had wrapped it up at that time, but his housekeeper had somehow thought, it belongs to the rest of the books in the bookcases, and the housekeeper had kind of repaired the book and put some tape around it and things like that. So when he was in this, now that he's lost his wife and his kids and all that, and about to lose his home, lost all his money, he was crying, and his eyes fell on that book on the bookshelf that he had bashed this girl up for. And he found Srila Prabhupada's book, and then he opened it. Something made him open it, and he read the books, and he got enlightened straight away. And he was so sorry. He found Krishna. I think some of you might know this story. And finally, down the road, he found this girl somewhere. He remembered her, and then he apologized to her, and he told her that because of you, I was saved. And he was very repentant. There are very many nice, lovely stories of book distribution, since we are on this topic. There's a Mataji who distributed a flyer many years ago through this temple. The flyer was basically a street harinam or something, and this temple had given a flyer about our programs. She happened to give that flyer to this lady who was, I believe she was working as a security guard here at that time, young lady. And she read that flyer, and through that flyer, she came to this temple, Sri Radha Gopinath, Sydney, Australia. And there her spiritual journey started just through the flyer. And years down the road, she is now a very highly worshipable Vaishnavi, disciple of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and has built a 5-story temple in Fiji with the help of another Mataji. And that is the fantastic result of book distribution that you can see. And in that, His Holiness Shyamapriya Mataji is the Acharya of that temple. But as you can see, one small flyer, can make such a huge difference. And there's a big temple standing there in Fiji. Her name, Mataji's name, I don't think she will mind if I take her name, because this is such a huge glorification of Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada and the disciples. Her name is Gita Kirti, Her Grace Gita Kirti Devi Dasi. And she got together with another 2 Matajis, their doctors, both of them, Shravanya Devi Dasi and Guru Smarna Devi Dasi, all disciples of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj, built a temple. Just ladies. Have you heard? Ladies building temple? Very, very rare. So there was another story of book distribution. It's amazing. That temple is like gorgeous. And another story of book distribution. This is my own personal story, and it is a very nice one too. I was working in Willowwood and traveling in this train every day. And this little Chinese boy used to travel from my workplace in the same train. So one day he introduced himself. He introduced himself and said, I'm so such and such, and I said, okay. And he said, I'm interested in reading books. And I said, okay, because he was, I've seen him all the time, so I thought it's fine if I speak to him. And he said, you are Indian? And I said, yes, I'm Indian. Do you know these books from Srila Prabhupada? And I was like, whoa. He works with me. He's been traveling with me for all this while, and he's been interested in a book by Srila Prabhupada. And I said, which book is that? And he said, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1. I'm reading that. And I said, where did you get that? And he said, well, I'm a Buddhist, and I like books, and I like reading, and I went to collect, some Buddhist books. But he went to this place, and he said, instead I found this Srimad Bhagavatam Canto there. And I said, okay. So at that time, I happened to be giving classes, just like today, here in the temple on Canto 1. So I said, which text are you reading? And he happened to say the same text that I'd given a class the other day on. So I was able to actually explain, okay, and then I gave him my class via WhatsApp. So this is the first meeting, and already you're talking about books. And then I said, and then he said, but I'm really interested in meeting this person whose name is on the book. And do you know whose name it was? You know him very, very, very well. He was our head pujari. Now he's a part of our council. He's a very good head book distributor. It was Gansham Govinda Prabhu's name and card was in that book. And I said, I know this guy. And do you want to meet him? I said, I want to meet him. So I ended up working in a place, sitting in a train in a random place, meeting one of those people who had actually got our books. And he said, I'm interested in more books. And he was very interested to meet Gansham Prabhu. I said, why don't you come to our temple and meet him? So he's yet to come. I think he's a little bit scared. And now that there's corona, he might not come. But one interesting thing he said, I don't know if Srila Prabhupada's book, if I'm looking for them, if I'm finding them, or they are coming to me. Because he then showed me some other books he had collected since then for free. He said, I don't know whether I'm going to the books or the books are coming to me. So these are some fantastic stories I'm sure there are many more of book distribution, but we see that Srila Prabhupada's words, they do come true. Lord Krishna does protect his devotees. So, and in the sense of continuing that protection bit, Lord Krishna says this very famous shloka in the Bhagavad Gita. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamayam. Which means when there is a decline in religion, when there is a decline in dharma, when there is an increase of demons, he comes down to and highlight those demons and re-establish religion and dharma. So in this form, Hayagriva obviously took Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna took the avatar or the incarnation of the horse, Hayagriva, but he has had many incarnations of establishing dharma and protecting his devotees. I mean, the most famous one is of Lord Krishna himself. He came down to kill various demons who were disguised as kings and also obviously Kamsa. And also Duryodhan, who was, by hook and crook, stole the kingdom of the 5 Pandavas, and he also stole their wives. So he came to, in that huge battle of Kurukshetra, he managed to kill millions and millions and millions of miscreants. So that's one incarnation, Lord Krishna. Second incarnation that is very dear to all of us, dear to me personally too, is the incarnation of Lord Ram. Lord Ram is one who has established all these ideal situations and principles that we can actually follow. I mean, when it comes to, he is known as Maryada Purushottam, which means he is the perfect man. So Krishna actually has done this. He's come in many forms. He's come as the perfect man, as a Purushottam, Maryada Purushottam. If you want to know how to be a perfect person, human, perfect man, follow Lord Ram. And Lord Ram had to make so many, establish so many principles. One of them is the most painful one that I personally felt very sorry to hear, was that he even sent his own wife, the worshipper Srimati Sita Devi, to the forest when she was pregnant with twins, just because his kingdom, said that unchaste woman is, unacceptable. So he actually denied, although he knew that his wife was chaste, he denied her the kingdom. He asked Lord Balram, who was as Lakshman, he'd come as Lakshman, he is the younger brother of Lord Ram, to take Sita Devi to the forest. I mean, this was dharma. It's incredible. I mean, I can't imagine doing something like that, and I can't imagine somebody else doing that. However, for the sake of dharma, for the sake of religion, Lord Ram being the king, he did this really impossible, seemingly impossible, painful task of sending his wife. And he asked his younger brother Lakshman to do that deed, to take his wife to the forest and drop her there. So Sita Devi was he didn't tell Sita Devi that I'm taking you to the forest to drop you off there permanently. He said, we are going there to visit the forest. So she went there happily. She said, oh, this brings back a lot of, happy memories when I was in exile with my dear Lord Ram. And, here we did this, there we did that. So she was living all these happy memories. And then when the time came for her to get off, Lakshman almost fainted and rolled on the ground. And when he had to deliver that painful message that Sita Devi, I'm leaving you here, and this is going to be your home from now onwards. So anyway, she was able to find protection in the ashram of Valmiki, and there she had her twins, Love and Kush. who later came back to Lord Ram, and then the story goes in the Ramayana. But if we want to know about dharma, about religion, we read the Ramayana. We don't we don't get a wife and leave her for no reason. We don't do that. But so in that regard, we wouldn't follow Lord Ram. But Lord Ram was about one woman, one arrow, one word. So he was very chaste. And he had only one wife, and he was very, very faithful and very, very caring, very, very faithful to his wife. He promised not to have any other wives, and this is what Bir Krishna Maharaj always tells his disciples and any other devotees who care to listen, to follow Lord Ram's ideal, and only one wife. Not like Lord Krishna. He's not a good example. And Gurudev actually mentions in his class, don't follow Lord Krishna's example when it comes to marriage, because you cannot actually fulfill those conditions like Lord Krishna did. You cannot expend yourself in 16,108 forms like he can. So it's better to stick with Lord Ram and follow those ideals. And one word means he kept his promise as Lord Ram. And one arrow means he only took one shot and the enemy is dead. He never had to use another arrow. Although he may have had many arrows, but it was one arrow. One woman, one word, one arrow. That was Lord Ram. And the ideal human form of man, with the ideals that we follow, footsteps that we follow. So Lord Ram. And then as Lord Nrsimhadev, in his incarnation, he came to specifically deliver his devotee who happened to be in the demon families. But it just goes to show that even if we are demonic in nature, we are material in a material form, we are in Kali Yuga, we can just be like Prahlad Maharaj. He will protect us, just like Srila Prabhupada said. He is going to protect his devotee in any condition. So we are in fact in a very contaminated stage. We can take solace that Krishna was able to take form of even Lord Nrsimha. And I have a very nice story, personal story about Lord Nrsimha. And I was actually, this is one of the best stories it's not a story, it's actually reality. It happened. And one of the best experiences that I've never forgotten. Because, there are so many devotees who are learning about devotional life right now. And they may not be initiated, or they are taking their first step towards Krishna consciousness. And that's where I was. I was in university. And I wasn't really knowledgeable. I didn't know who was who. I didn't know anything about Lord Krishna's incarnations. I didn't know, didn't have much knowledge. I was in New Zealand for a long time. So I'm kind of like a Kiwi, one-third Kiwi. So unfortunately or fortunately, even though I'm in an Indian skin. And so I went to the temple there in Auckland. And my family wasn't very favorable. But there's one particular member of my family, my younger sister. She was very unfavorable to the point that she didn't want me to lose me to Krishna consciousness. I'm not sure why she did it, but she was a big hindrance to me going to the temple or chanting. I couldn't chant in my house. So I'm coming to the Lord Nrsimha bit. So one day, my guru said that you're going to be getting initiated in 6 months' time, so prepare yourself. So all the Auckland devotees got together, preached to me, gave me prasadam, prepared me for initiation, all of that. But here I was having a big, meat was being thrown everywhere, and tuna was being mixed in my prasadam and all these things. And my family was being influenced to stop me from chanting. I had to lock myself in my room to finish my chanting. There's a lot of things that was involved. So it was almost impossible to get initiated that time. So then Lord Nrsimha, I didn't know. All I knew was there was a Lord Nrsimha, but I didn't know much detail about what he does, what he did, his pastimes. And my younger sister had a dream of Lord Nrsimha. He came in a dream, and what he did in a dream is he bared his teeth. Like that. And that was a clear message. You'd hurt my devotee, oh, you stop my devotee, I'm going to fix you up. She didn't understand. So she woke up in the morning and said, I had this dream of Lord Narasimha, and the first thing I thought was, how come I'm being devotional and she gets to see him and I don't? And she's the one, not in bhakti and not stopping, she's stopping us, everyone from bhakti, and she gets to see him. She said, I saw his teeth, they were very big, and his nails. And then later on, I told my guru of spiritual, what does this mean? And he said, well, that if you happen to see Lord Krishna's teeth, you are in big trouble. You are in very big trouble. You can't be an obstacle to a devotee because Lord Narasimha there. So he protected me even when I didn't know him. I didn't know him that well at all. Those were my early days. And this is a very good example of how Lord Narasimha protects his devotees from Prahlad. This is a personal experience. And then I sat down and I thought, I must learn his prayer. Lord Narasimha Dev's prayer. I don't know how to sing his prayer. I didn't know the words. So I had a dream. Lord Jagannath came and he sang Lord Narasimha's prayer in my dream and taught me. Lord Narasimha's prayer I learned in my dream. I repeated after him, and then I learned that prayer in my dream. So it's very beautiful that Lord Krishna comes for his devotees. Whether it is in the form of Lord Narasimha or Lord Ram or Lord Krishna. And in this day and age, if you might think, well, he didn't come for me, you'd be very wrong. Very, very wrong. Because he came as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for us. This was his advent, this was his avatar, this was his manifestation. And he came in at a time when we would need him the most. In this very degraded state in Kali Yuga, we are so contaminated that we don't know what is devotion, we don't know how to be a devotee. So he came as a devotee of himself. So he is going around chanting his own names in the disguise of a Brahmin devotee, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is what Srila Prabhupada has taught us, to follow Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the saying goes that Lord Krishna's incarnations and manifestations are unlimited like the sand in the beach. We don't know how many forms he has taken, but certainly in every yuga he comes. And for us especially, he has come as Chaitanya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not just Lord Krishna, he is also Srimati Radharani. So my personal feeling is that if you want to worship both Lord Krishna and Radharani together, just worship Lord Chaitanya. Because you get Krishna and you get Radharani's mercy, kindness, most fantastic of incarnations that we could possibly have at such a time like this, where we don't know how to do a yagna properly, we don't know how to chant our mantras properly, we don't really know anything basically, and they just gave us a very simple Mahamantra, and that is the most perfect form of Lord to worship, is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for this day and age, and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So we've got about 5-10 minutes. I'll see what else I have got here that I can say that will help us. Because we tend to worship the demigods, or we are afraid. In Fiji, they worship Krishna, but they keep the demigods in the altar as well. And the reason they do that is, the answer is we worship Krishna, but just in case we got it wrong, let us keep Lord Shiva and Lord Durga and Lord Ganesh. Maybe we'll get it right with them. So they're kind of a little bit in fear that they will not worship the right Lord. So in this regard, if you really want to know what is wrong and what is right, you worship Krishna by inquiring submissively from a guru or a spiritual master. And in that, Srila Prabhupada would have, even if we don't get Prabhupada, we've got his books, just like that young boy in the train. He knew a little bit, he knew a lot about our philosophy. And he was able to love Krishna without bowing down to other demigods. Because he understood that if we worship Krishna, we are automatically bowing down to the other demigods. So all are covered. And a spiritual master, a bona fide spiritual master, will be able to guide us through that. There are many ways that we can follow these things, the procedures. We can be, let's see, I've got some few points. I will read it out very quickly that I had written ages ago, which might be of of some use. These are Rupa Goswami's basic principles. These are preliminary necessities for discharge of devotional service or learning about bhakti, devotional service or bhakti from a spiritual master. So the first step is to accept the shelter of the lotus feet of the spiritual master. Secondly, you become initiated by a spiritual master and learning how to discharge devotional service from him. Thirdly, you obey the orders of the spiritual master with faith and devotion. In other words, you're doing what Krishna wants, but doing it in a sense of devotion, not resentful. So you don't really need to be forced. It needs to come from the heart. Number 4, you follow the footsteps of your acharyas and leaders through the spiritual master. In other words, you approach the acharyas through the instruction of the spiritual master, because the reason is you can end up in deviation if you have your own ideas. And there's an example there why we have to follow the spiritual master's instructions. Is we've got the Jaiva Dharma, which is, I believe, yes, it's been written by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. But Srila Prabhupada had asked us not to follow those instructions so much, because that will lead us to deviation, because the procedures are so, I should say, not so strict, but it is not practical for this day and age, because it involves, it's quite complex. Quite complex. So Srila Prabhupada kind of simplified it for us. And he encouraged us to follow the guidelines that he has set, rather than follow it strictly. Not, you can read it obviously, but strictly it is kind of hard to follow those guidelines set up in the Jaiva Dharma. So he asked one of his disciples, who your favorite author is. I believe it was Bhavananda, and he said, my favorite author is of the books. We all have our favorite authors, I guess. And he said it's Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And Srila Prabhupada's answer was, no, that is your second favorite. What was the first favorite was himself, his spiritual master. So we really have to listen to Srila Prabhupada. And that's really what the lesson was for his disciple. Read Srila Prabhupada's books first, and have that as your favorite. Number 5 is we inquire from the spiritual master how to advance in Krishna conscious. In other words, we ask these questions because our spiritual master knows how to fine-tune our bhakti to avoid anarthas and increase our sadhana. Why? Because the spiritual master is really expert in understanding the psyche of the nature of the disciple. I mean, he might tell one disciple, go and get married immediately, and another one will say, no, never get married. And because there's a difference on how the disciple practices, and there's a difference in nature. And obviously, the spiritual master is able to pick up on anarthas also. I mean, most of the time we think that we are right. We are doing the right thing. We are not offending anyone. We are not aware, actually, that we might be offending. And so it is very important to be able to communicate, if not with your spiritual master, but with a higher authority, just to double check or triple check. Look, is this right? Or, I think like this about a certain so-and-so. And then you might get a feedback saying, no, Prabhu, no, Mataji, you are actually wrong. And you are committing an aparadh. And then you'll say, no, I don't think so. But they'll tell you, yeah, no, it's an aparadh. So when we inquire from the spiritual master, he actually tells us very clearly, you will be, committing an aparad, or this is the sadhana, this is how much you should do. I mean, when I was working just recently in my last job, it was so busy, and it just took up all my time that my chanting was compromised. And I was extremely unhappy about that, because I couldn't chant even in the train. I fell asleep on the train out of tiredness. I'd come home and I'd just collapse. So chanting was being compromised, and I wrote an email to my spiritual master, this is what's happening. And I just cannot hold on to this job where I cannot even chant. And the message I got back, it wasn't to say, leave your job. He never said that. He just said, chanting is important. Which really meant to me was, whatever it is you do, make sure that you chant. So I duly resigned. I thought, no job is worth it if I can't take Krishna's names. So obviously there are many jobs out there that you can have. So you can always, apply for something else. I wasn't very happy with that job. My boss said, well, if you're tired, if you're sick or whatever, just eat meat. So he was telling me to eat meat. Yeah, my boss. My boss told me eat meat. And I thought, what the hell kind of, sorry about but what the hell kind of a job is this, and what the hell kind of a boss have I got? Oh, Krishna, you really try your devotees. But that's a challenge. I mean, if you are looking at it from a material perspective, you say, oh, if I lose my job, then I lose my livelihood. Where will I go? And you hang on to your job and you listen to your boss telling you to eat meat. I mean, somebody could do that. But the challenge was there for me to take. And I took the actually, it was a pleasure to resign from that place. It was a definite pleasure to resign. That was my choice. That is how I handled my challenge. I hope Krishna understands. And anyway, he compensated with money in other ways. So I guess I didn't lose out over there. But that was an interesting experience. And so number 6, being prepared to give up anything being prepared to give up anything material for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And my exclamation over here in my notes is, wow, that's a tough one. I guess it's true, because I had to give up a very highly paid job. There were very many zeros at the end of my pay packet. It was a very great, because it was a highly paid corporate level job. Lots of zeros. Anyway, I gave that up. So this is step 6 actually. Be prepared to give up anything material. Number 7 is a good one. Residing in a sacred place of pilgrim like Dwarka or Vrindavan or near a temple. Because our temples are Vaikuntha. So our deities here are the same because they are properly installed. Unless you have service here, there is no need to go to Vrindavan. So I've always wanted to live near a temple. I'm not prepared to leave the dham. For me, this Gopinath's temple is the dham. This is my Vrindavan and this is my Goloka. I don't need to go anywhere. And I feel the same very, very strongly about my birthplace, which is Sri Krishna Kaliya Temple, Lotoka, Fiji. That is my Vrindavan dham. And that is my Goloka. That is my Mayapur. And this is how devotees should always feel about their local temple. It is an expansion of Vrindavan. Now, if you are unable to come to a temple, make your home a temple. Have deities in your house. If you can't have deities in your own home, then visit somebody who has deities in their home. In other words, always make sure that you are near or accessible to a place of worship of Lord Krishna. And the 8th one is accepting what is necessary or dealing with material world only as far as necessary. In other words, nothing in indulgence and nothing in excess. And number 9 is a good one, observing fasting on Ekadashi. So you observe Ekadashi to please Krishna. And number 10, worshipping sacred trees like the Tulasi or the banyan tree. So these are 10 principles that Rupa Goswami has placed for us. I am going to stop there. This was quite a good class. To just sum it up, if you happen to be in a dire situation or in a situation of attack from demons, have faith in Krishna. Krishna will protect you. And try to observe all these principles on accepting shelter with the spiritual master, following his guidelines, read Srila Prabhupada's books to help you with your spiritual advancement, and understand that Krishna, there's nothing Krishna wouldn't do to protect you. He comes like a horse, he comes like a pig, Varaha, he comes like a lion, he comes as a monkey, he comes as a devotee of himself, he comes as Lord Rama, he comes in any form and every form. He bends over backwards for his devotees. If you really look at it, every single time, he will help you. So that concludes my class for today. Are there any questions or comments? Yes. Is your question why he takes specifically that time? That's a good question. Yeah. Yes. So the question is from Ishwara Prabhu, why did Krishna choose to become a horse? I mean, that doesn't really portray knowledge. Why did he choose that particular form? Someone asked this question to my spiritual master, and people are always asking him, why is Lord Gram in a green color? Why is Krishna like in a blue color? And why did he come as a lion? Why does he even came as a form of a fish, Matsya. Why does he do those things? That was a good question. And so the question here in this case is, why did he come as a horse? And the answer that my spiritual master gave is a very simple one, because Krishna enjoys it. And there is really no other question why he would choose a horse to personify knowledge. I've got no idea, none at all, other than the fact that it's his wish, it's his will, and he loves it, he enjoys it. And that was the only answer he could give, and that's the only answer I can give this morning, because he wants to and because he enjoys it. There is no other explanation, because in Lord Krishna, he can actually perform any sensory functions to any part of his body. I mean, he has to just look with his eyes, and he can take prasadam with his eyes. He just looks at the prasadam, the bhoga you offer, and it becomes prasadam. He just has to glance. He impregnates the material energies, the cosmos, just by a glance, one glance. And all the creation happens. So, in the form of a horse, if he wants to personify knowledge, so be it. He can do anything and everything, for he is our worshipful Lord. But there was this story about this cobbler, and he was and this Brahmin, and Narad Muni was passing by. I think you might know this story. And the cobbler said, when you go to Vishnu, ask him, Lord Vishnu, ask him when I will be delivered, back to Godhead. And the Brahmin, who's ritualistic and practices religion every day, please ask Vishnu the same question, when I will be delivered. So Narad Muni goes there, asks Lord Vishnu, who will be delivered first. And Lord Vishnu's answer was the cobbler, who didn't practice a single spiritual practice at all. And Narad Muni said, why? Because the Brahmin does everything. I mean, they're priests in the temple. I don't want to offend them, because they follow the standards and everything like that. But they're devotees outside. Who knows who's going to go first? It's up to Krishna. So Lord Vishnu's answer was, when they asked, just go and tell them that I was putting a thread, putting an elephant through the needle, hole of a needle, putting an elephant through the hole of a needle. And so when Narad Muni goes to relate this story, the Brahmin said, who's going to go first? He said, the cobbler is going to go first. And he said, why? Because he was busy putting an elephant through the hole of the needle. And the Brahmin answered, what? It's not going to happen. That's impossible. It won't happen. He said the same thing to the cobbler, and the cobbler said, he is my worshipable Lord. He can do anything and everything. If he wants to put an elephant through a needle, why not? So that was faith. And with a horse head, it is also faith. that he can achieve whatever he wants. As a pig, he had these tusks, and he lifted the entire earth with the tusks of a pig. But if you really look like a pig or a boar, you wouldn't think that with the tusks they'll even be able to lift a soccer ball. But he lifts the entire bhumi. So it is his to his satisfaction, to his enjoyment, that he does what he does. Who can understand Krishna? No one, really. Okay, so that was a good question. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay, Grantrad Srimad Bhagavatam Puran ki jai. Okay. His strength, power in the Nesima form too. Yeah, the host is also one. But